Hello, and I figured today we're just going to do a quick Q&A session with any questions you have about the market. But first, I wanted to give you a quick update about ways that you can tackle the affordability issue that we're experiencing nowadays due to the high cost of housing and the environment with high interest rates. And that is with a product that it's been around for quite some time, but not a lot of people know about it as much because it's not openly marketed, and that's the 40-year mortgage. So in essence, a 40-year mortgage is a mortgage that has been stretched out over the span of 40 years. And one of the benefits of using a 40-year mortgage to purchase either your primary residence or an investment property is the fact that because you're stretching the mortgage payments for an additional 10 years compared to a 30-year mortgage, your mortgage payments are smaller, quote unquote. And so that makes things a bit more affordable on a day-to-day basis because that will free up some capital for you to tackle your daily life expenses. The only downside of it is that because you're stretching it for an additional 10 years, that means that you will wind up paying more in interest. So some of the questions that I've gotten over the years is why would I go for a 40-year mortgage if I'm going to pay more in interest in the long run? And in addition to that, I am building very little equity because you're stretching it for 40 years in total. That means that whatever payment you're making towards the mortgage, most of it is going to go towards interest, and very little is going to go towards the principal reduction, which is the debt reduction. So the shorter the mortgage, the faster you can pay off the mortgage because more money is going towards the principal reduction. And then the longer you stretch it, then the slower you build it up. So I have to say that this is actually a very interesting product and a very good one to consider depending on what you're looking to get. So let's say, for example, there are different ways to structure a 40-year mortgage because these are considered non-conforming loans, meaning that they don't fall within the standards of the products that are offered to the consumers that are protected by law. And so because of that, that means that the lender can choose to structure the loan in a way that could benefit them or get creative with how much they're going to charge and interest rates and stuff like that. So there are three ways in how you can find the structure of a 40-year mortgage. One is by the traditional route with a fully amortized loan, meaning that every payment you make will be partially going to interest and then partially going towards the principal reduction. You can also choose the option to go for a principal an interest only loan, which means that you will pay only the interest part of it, but you're not paying anything extra to the debt reduction. And then towards the end of the loan, you're going to have a balloon payment, and it's called a balloon because think of it as a balloon getting big. So that means you're going to have to pay a big lump sum to pay off that debt. But a lot of professional real estate investors like that interest only option because it lowers their monthly payment, and also because their goal is not to keep the property for them or build equity because they're flipping the property. So that means they're already building equity on it. They're forcing the appreciation of it. So in the end, if they choose to rent it out or refinance the loan, that means that they would have already made the equity that they were seeking to make and then just get out the loan. You also have the option to, it's not up to you, but you could find in the market a hybrid of a 40-year mortgage, meaning that the first 10 years you're going to have to pay principal only, and then the remaining 30 years it's going to be fully amortized. So whatever payments you make, it's going to go part towards interest and then principal reduction. And so when you think about it that way, what's more important to be able to get your hands on a house now and then look for ways to afford it and then figure out how you can restructure that loan, at least you're not losing that house? Or do you want to wait another 5, 6, or 10 years to see if interest rates do come down, but then by then chances are property prices are going to go up. And I know a lot of people, there's a lot of noise in the media saying, oh, some markets are tanking. That's not necessarily the case. You have to, take everything with a grain of salt. What's tanking are the condos in Florida that have all these special assessments and repairs that need to be made that were not taken care of in a timely manner. Yes, some industries are stabilizing, quote unquote, but it doesn't mean that the market is crashing. And even with the reduction in some of the housing prices, there's still the fact that the rates are quite high. So if you've been looking for quite some time for the property or the home of your dreams or the right investment property, why should you let it go? What you need to do is to find ways to get your hands on it, and the 40-year mortgage is one option. Yes, you are going to pay more interest in the long run. However, if you treat it as a shorter mortgage, let's say for example, if you sign up for a 40-year mortgage but then you treat it like a 30-year mortgage, meaning you're going to pay extra towards the principal every month, then you will pay off that mortgage in a shorter period of time, and therefore you're going to also save an interest, because the more you pay towards the principal reduction, the less interest you pay in the long run, because the interests are calculated based on the debt that remains in there. So I'm just going to pause right now to see if there's any questions about what we talked about, or any Q&A sessions about any investment properties that you're considering right
Yes.
now.
If you have a question, just
Anthony
leave it in the
here,
comment section below.
The co-founder
Hey
of
everyone,
Rise.
hello.
I know he usually doesn't show up too much on camera, but
Yeah, we have some people here. Please, if you have a question for Lucy, you can just ask them in the questions below.
I know we were doing a live before, and someone else asked whether these 40-year mortgages were available only for brand new constructions or existing properties. And there's actually available for both. One of the things that you should know about 40-year mortgages is that this is not something that is openly marketed by any financial institution, because they're considered non-conforming, meaning that they're not under the protection of certain laws that are meant to protect the consumer after what happened in 2008. So they don't openly promote it because it could be perceived as them being predatory, offering you a product and where they get the chance to make more money. But if you ask for it as the customer, then that's different. And not all lenders offer it. Like, you're going to have to work with a mortgage broker. And if you don't know where to find a good mortgage broker, a starting point is to either go on Google and find mortgage brokers in your area. You can type in mortgage broker and then type in the zip code, or go straight to the realtor that you're working with and ask them if they have a mortgage broker in their network. And chances are they all have them. If your realtor doesn't have one, then run away, because that person is not ready to represent you. Financing, it should be the key part of every realtor. They should have one in their power team.
Well, someone is asking a question. I mean, I can ask you different questions about other topics regarding real estate. So I don't know if you want to talk about Airbnb, like a project that we've been doing lately, but I don't know if you want to get into the details. Probably something that you've learned from that experience.
I mean, with Airbnb, it's something that is still new for us, and the reason why I haven't created much content is because I typically like to, I wouldn't say master it, but at least get comfortable enough to understand the ins and outs. Airbnb can be quite profitable if you have the right business model for it, but one of the things that we're experiencing right now is the issues in metropolitan cities. So for those who are brand new to real estate or the topic of Airbnb, back in, I think it was 2023 or something, there was a big lawsuit from the hotels against Airbnb. And so the cities, major cities like New York, for example, came up with regulations that require hosts to have a permit to be able to have to be able to operate as Airbnb hosts. While the permit is not necessarily an issue, yes, the city makes it horrible. It's painful to even qualify for one. The concept of Airbnb in metropolitan cities have changed a lot. So, for example, I remember during the pandemic when we traveled, we were able to rent out an entire apartment or an entire house for us, right? And do work in there and stay there for like weeks at a time. And now things have changed. So if you're doing short term, meaning anything that's 30 days or less, you will need a permit and you cannot rent out the entire property. You can only rent out a room, and you have to be there at all times. So typically you have to be, it has to be your primary residence, for lack of a better term. The good thing is that you don't have to be the owner of that property. You can be a renter. Let's say you rent a 2-bedroom apartment. You can actually put the other room for rent. Let's say you don't want a roommate, but you don't mind renting it to people who are traveling to your town for a couple of days. You can actually rent out that room, but it has to be your primary residence and you have to be there pretty much at all times. And so, I mean, they don't define it, but they said that you have to be there. So you have to work, like at least in your city, the language that they use is very vague. And so it's a lot of patience and interpretation to try to get things right and work for them. But if you nail it, or if you happen to be in an area where those restrictions are not there, I still consider Airbnb to be pretty profitable. You just have to work on the operating costs, because one of the biggest fees that eat up the chunk of that cash flow that you could be generating with Airbnb is the cleaning part of it, right? I know some people, some hosts do charge a cleaning fee and some don't, but believe me, either or, you're paying it all at the end. So what we have learned is that with the people that are, or the hosts that are charging less per night, they do charge a cleaning fee. And then the people that charge more for the night stay, there's no cleaning fee because that fee is already embedded in the price. So the way I perceive it is, if you're charging a cleaning fee, in my opinion, unless you're doing an Airbnb business and things are a little bit different for you, but if you're doing an Airbnb business and you're charging a cleaning fee, chances are the guests could leave a place a little bit more messier, because they're in their mind they're thinking, well, I'm paying for the cleaning fee, so let them come in and clean this up because I'm already paying for this. And while cleaning is not the problem, it's more the turnaround time. So like sometimes, especially if you're in an area that is highly desired and you have back-to-back reservations, having that 3 hour, 4 hour in between to get the room ready and the bathroom ready for the next guest can become a crunch in time, and it's a rush. So so again, it's something that we're still playing around with, but if you can tackle like the cleaning part of it, definitely you can really maximize your rental or your income that you're generating. Plus, one of the positive things, aside from like the fact that you get to charge more to Airbnb, is the wear and tear, right? Because you're typically renting it out to people who are tourists, who are sightseeing in your area. So they're not spending as much time in the property because they just simply look for a place to sleep, and then the next day they're out and touring and sightseeing, and then they come back the next day just to sleep, get ready, and then head out, which is very different than a primary residence for someone that they tend to spend more time at home, especially in the cold months. Is there anything you wanted to add about Airbnb?
I mean, if you're looking to do like Airbnb and you want to apply for the permit, like what are the times that you like usually think that it will probably get the property approved?
I mean, we've been helping some friends to get their permit approved, and I will say that the worst part, I mean, this is just me basing it in our experience. I'm not saying this is a guarantee. The summer months are probably the worst to apply for a permit because people go on vacations, people have families, and so if you're dealing with someone that works for the city or whoever that's granting you that permit has a family, chances are they're booking their vacations in the summer months because it's when their kids are off from school. So if you submit a permit, you will probably be dealing with a smaller workforce that it's looking into your permits, and chances are people were just you're just gonna have to wait longer to get approved. But that's just based on our experience. I think we submitted ours at the very beginning of the year, and at that time people are just coming back. Business is slow, and we just happened to be the first one to submit our permit, so we kind of got ours approved relatively quick. It was still very frustrating, but it was relatively quick compared to our friends who have been waiting for months. And it got to a point that where they just gave up.
Yeah.
So they decided to put the property back into long-term renting.
I mean, it's quite a thing. Like, if you want to get approved for Airbnb, like, you can either get approved like in weeks or months. Like, there's not like a set time that basically they will say, oh, we're gonna approve you for renting your property short term. And that's why you need to plan accordingly, because the fact that you get a property and you want to do like Airbnb, I'll recommend to put the property as soon as possible without much decoration, like upload the property
just
into
create
Airbnb,
the listing,
create a listing, and see the steps that the Airbnb platform will require from you in order to put that property for renting. Because if they require a permit, you don't want to like decorate the property like to the fullest, and then wanting to like return a bunch of items just because you got
that's what our friend did. When we apply, we put some furniture just to get the ball rolling. We figure we can always make it look prettier, and as we start getting more income. But then our friend, I guess they were just too excited, and they went all in on the decoration, and they put a ton of debt in their credit cards trying to get the place pretty and beautiful, but it's not being rented right now. So now they're stuck with all this furniture. Some I'm assuming they were able to return, but then some they didn't. And so before you get heavily invested into a project, just make sure you have a proof of concept, meaning that you have proven that whatever you have in mind actually works. Otherwise, you're just pouring money into something that's not generating income for you, and that becomes a bad debt.
All right. So if you don't have any other question, unless you want to like respond to something, like
is there anything else that was coming in from the other platforms that
let me check.
Somebody was asking other questions? Prepayment penalty. I remember there was another question that was asked. 40-year mortgages, they do, now we're back to the original topic, which is 40-year mortgage. They do have repayment penalties. So make sure you be on the lookout for the terms and see when that apply, because typically with loans is that if you paid off within the first 5 years, there's usually a prepayment penalty, unless it's a residential loan. But in my experience, I've dealt with mostly commercial loans, so they do have a 5-year prepayment penalty, and if you happen to exceed that 5 year, there's usually none. And of course, the faster you pay it off, meaning if you wanted to pay it off at the 2nd year, the prepayment penalty is higher. If you wait for the 3rd year, the prepayment penalty it's a little less, and so on. So I think that's it. If we didn't get to answer your question, feel free to just leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll be swinging by and providing any responses as needed. So thank you so much for your support so far, and we'll be trying to do more of these lives to connect with you, and I'll see you in the next live.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.